Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there once again and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. This is episode number 231, entitled One-Click Checkout in WooCommerce with PeachPay. It was published on Thursday the 27th of May 2021. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and some very short housekeeping before we begin. Head over to wpbuilds.com/subscribe if you'd like to find out what it is and where we put our content. So, for example, on there's links to our YouTube channel, our very, very popular Facebook group of over 2,800 very polite WordPressers, and there's also ways to subscribe to us on your favourite podcast player. You get the idea. wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Whilst you're there, sign up to one of our newsletters and we'll keep you updated. wpbuilds.com/deals is a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. If you've got a product or service that you're interested in buying this week, go and check that out. You never know, it might be there. It's searchable and filterable, and you may very well find a significant percentage off with a coupon code. And the last one, wpbuilds.com/advertise, if you would like to get your product or service in front of a WordPress specific audience, a bit like these two companies have done. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by Termageddon. When you build contact forms for client websites, you may be forcing that client to comply with multiple privacy laws. Rather than avoiding discussing the importance of privacy policies with your clients, try out Termageddon, the auto-updating privacy policy generator. The best part is that Termageddon gives web agencies a free set of their policies forever in the hope that you like their product and use their reseller or referral programs to help your clients get protected too. Your clients get protected, you make more recurring revenue. Go to termageddon.com and click the Agency Partners page to receive your free license today. And by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. You can check it out and get a demo at absplittest.com. Okay, on the podcast today we have David Maniar from PeachPay. PeachPay is a new company in the WooCommerce space, hoping to make it more straightforward for people to go from checking out your website to actually purchasing things. They've got this one-click checkout technology, which you can use across multiple domains. The idea being that customers get to your website and are presented with the options to pay, and they only have to go through one additional screen in order to actually purchase items and get them shipped to them. It's a really interesting idea, and we talk about why they've designed it, how it all works, what are the sort of things that you've got to be mindful of, like how do they maintain state, what is the cost structure, and so on. So it's a really interesting talk. During the course of the audio, you may find that David's audio is a little bit poor in places. I don't quite know why that happened, but it's certainly very listenable. And the other thing to mention is that since we recorded this podcast, they've actually received some investment from WooCommerce directly, and so that gives you perhaps a little bit more confidence going forwards. Okay, I hope that you enjoy the podcast. Hello there, welcome to the WP Builds podcast once more. I'm joined today by David Maniar. Hi there, David.
Hi there. Thanks for having me, Nathan.
Yep, you're very welcome. Now, I was just saying to David before we started recording that I actually can't remember where I came across the product that we're going to be talking about today. But if you're a WooCommerce user in particular, or perhaps even you're just selling things online, not necessarily WooCommerce, this might be of interest to you. We're talking today about something called PeachPay. Now, I do want to, right at the very start, I want to be very clear. Go to the correct website, because it would appear that there is a service with a similar name. I don't know if they're doing the exact same thing, but if you Google it, you may end up in the wrong place. So go to PeachPay, as expected, PeachPay.app, A-P-P. Anything else is not what you're looking for today. So, first of all, David, if it's all right with you, what is PeachPay? Simple question, but probably good to get it out of the way.
Yeah, sure. And if anyone's curious about the other PeachPay, since you put it quite ominously. Um, they're just they're a sort of payment service for creators, so for content creators. So unless there are any content creators watching, probably is not of interest. But what PeachPay.app does is, well, our mission is to democratize one-click checkout, and we thought that the best place to start, the best platform, is WooCommerce. We're only on WooCommerce, but with the latest numbers out there, we're quickly racing toward powering 1 in 3 online stores. So very excited to be part of this community and to see its growth and to be servicing its merchants.
So it's got to do with the checkout. Obviously, you'd expect as much because it's called PeachPay. But what does it actually do? If I was to visit a site and if this was to be implemented on that site, how would I know? What would I be looking at? What is the point of it?
So essentially, you'd be looking at a buy with one click button that is fully customizable. We leave it up to the merchant's discretion, what color to make it, what width to make the button. We want to integrate as seamlessly as possible into a merchant's site. And toward that end, on the back end, we're just using Stripe to, collect payments.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all managed through the same dashboard that a merchant would regularly use to collect payments with Stripe. And I think that represents about 800,000 or so merchants, or that's the number of active installations of the Stripe for WooCommerce plugin, at least. And then on the consumer-facing side, or the end user-facing side, essentially you click this button, and a streamlined form is generated. We have to get the information from somewhere. So, it's not buy with one click instantly, but you fill out that information as an end user. And then the next time you encounter this button, this buy with one click PeachPay button, it doesn't matter what site you're on, you will have access to one click as long as you're using the same browser, the same device. So already it's distinct from a lot of the one-click checkout solutions out there that, they call themselves one-click, but really they're passworded one-click. This is a passwordless one-click checkout solution. Already differentiates it from, I would say, 99% of the so-called one-click checkout plugins out there.
Yeah, you told me a really curious fact because I was kind of interested why this had come along now, and I think you said the year 2017 was the year that Amazon no longer, had the right to patent the idea of a one-click checkout. Is that right? That's so bizarre. I never knew.
Yeah, we didn't know either until we started building it, and then we're like, oh, well, that's very convenient. That's quite fortuitous that they no longer have that patent.
Yeah.
But we were wondering, why is it that it's taken so long for one-click checkout to sort of get this buzz? Now it certainly has that buzz. Now we hear a lot of people talking about it. There's certainly a lot of interest among, the Silicon Valley, technologist community. So full disclosure, we are a tech startup raising venture capital. We have raised a pre-seed round. We're currently raising a seed round, and there was just this huge influx of interest after that. But most importantly for us, there's an interest and a recognition on the part of the merchants.
Yeah.
And I think more and more merchants are seeing that, this is something that, it's kind of inevitable. It's needs to be added. It makes it easier for my customer to check out, increases conversions, reduces cart abandonment. And that's our whole mission, is to essentially benefit the merchant, benefit the end user by democratizing this one-click checkout. And yeah, so Amazon, Jeff actually mentioned it in his farewell email. He said, we're proud to have pioneered one-click. Certainly great that they pioneered it, but then the patent was, or the technology, the very notion of one-click, I guess, was patented for a very long time. And so it's good that now essentially those shackles have been unlocked.
Yeah.
And since 2017, really, I think what it boils down to, I haven't heard a better explanation, is just complacency.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon have made so much money out of me and my family with that button. In all honesty, you just sort of get there and you're hovering over the option to click the one-click button. the one-click buy now button, or the option to sort of do the other thing, go through the checkout and all of that. And it just works, right? It's really alluring. It actually has the power to draw your finger towards it. And I was wondering, as e-commerce becomes more and more the way we're doing it, obviously we've had an incredible year in terms of e-commerce due to the pandemic, but as it becomes more and more normal to shop online, I'm expecting that merchants, as a proportion of their carts, they'll see things being abandoned more just because people are becoming more savvy. They're browsing more online. They are doing that as the default way of shopping now, as opposed to walking down the high street. And obviously, there's only a certain amount of money available to each and every person and every family. So you might fill up this cart over here, go to this shop over there, browse around over here. So kind of any advantage that you can present in your checkout experience seems to be something that you should really, really be endeavoring to do. I'm guessing cart abandonment is on the increase.
100%. And the line that is frequently trotted out nowadays is the consumer is spoiled. The consumer is this way and that way, low attention, short attention span, this kind of thing. All that may be true. You might, that might be how the merchant feels. But they kind of have good reason to be. I mean, again, since 2017, there's been no reason to delay the advent of one-click checkout, but for whatever reason, it has been delayed. There are some stores which one-click checkout is not right for. That's certainly the case. But for the vast majority of online stores, it kind of, it is something that I would even call a must-have for the B2C store selling, fashion. Like, I think fashion is still by far the most popular e-commerce category. It makes absolute sense but for really any B2C product that is not subscription based, you want a one-click checkout solution. And the curious thing about the Amazon one-click checkout is how it's evolved. So at first you click that and it was truly one click. I think maybe you can speak to this. Yeah, it was truly one click, right? Kind of amazing. I think since then they've kind of backed off and presented a confirmation screen because they realized, people want that last reassurance. And if Amazon can't change consumer behavior, I don't think there's any point in anyone else really trying in this regard, at least. And so the approach we've taken is to present that last confirmation screen, just make sure that everything's right. And I will say, I mean, compared to Amazon, there's less sensory input. It seems like with Amazon, there's a lot going on from buying to actually checking out. With us, we're just trying to simplify things, but we have taken the approach that Amazon has taken to actually present the online shopper with one last chance to check over shipping options and payment preferences, make sure everything is correct before actually buying. Yeah,
I mean, that seems to be a really great default, to be honest, because the chances that your cat could accidentally, purchase the $1,000 object that just because the phone was sitting on the couch, at least the cat would have to click it twice, or the aberrant child who just accidentally clicks on something. But so the confirmation is great. Yeah, I totally did screw up a couple of times with Amazon and had to contact their support and say, please cancel this. I actually did do that. So I guess the question would be, if you're inside of WooCommerce and you're displaying on the checkout page and all of that kind of stuff. Incidentally, by the way, I don't know if you heard that there was a podcast this week with Matt Mullenweg, who is obviously kind of in charge of WooCommerce. He believes that really WooCommerce is about to explode. He really believes that the future for WooCommerce is really, really very bright indeed. Yeah, day one. Those are the exact words. You were obviously listening to the same podcast that I was.
Definitely.
But this is a really great place to be. But how does it differ? I know we mentioned Amazon, but Amazon have got their Amazon Pay solution, which is not obviously the Amazon.com website. You can use a buy now button, for want of a better word, which is using their infrastructure, and obviously they're working on the basis that a lot of people are just permanently logged into Amazon anyway. So there's the Amazon Pay option, there's the Apple Pay option, there's the Android Pay option, there's PayPal, which obviously isn't one click, but the Android and Apple Pay kind of more or less are. And then I've got things like browser functionality. Like, for example, my browser could quite easily fill in the payment fields for me, or something like LastPass could do that for me. What differentiates you? What makes you different from those platforms that I've just mentioned?
Right. So essentially, all these payment Goliaths, first off, they're just focused on the checkout. Unlike ourselves, we consider two verticals: checkout, post-checkout, although checkout is the main offering right now as we continue to build out the product, the app, which I'll get into in a minute. All these Goliaths, though, they're kind of self-restricted by virtue of who's actually manufacturing these payment options. Like Apple Pay is at a disadvantage on Windows OS devices, and this majority of Americans are running Windows OS as opposed to Mac OS. But then they are running iOS versus Android. So then conversely, on the smartphone side, then Google Pay is suddenly at a disadvantage. And Amazon Pay, I can't speak to so much as to it. It would seem like they would have made more inroads. It really kind of baffles me that they haven't, especially since they pioneered one click. But you just don't see it that much. I talk to merchants on a very regular basis. I talk to people in agencies, developers, and they just don't hear that much about it. Some of them actually like 1 and 2 don't even know that it exists. And for me, when I learned, it kind of came out of nowhere. I really was quite confused as to why people haven't been adopting this. But I think they just haven't been pushing it out as much, and maybe there are some concerns about transactional fees. Really, I'm unsure about their model. And as for autofill, autofill is a handy solution, although an imperfect one. For that first time user flow that I mentioned, you have to go through with PeachPay. Autofill is something that would expedite that process. But then, sometimes it gets the wrong credit card, sometimes it gets the wrong address, whatever. Sometimes, I don't know about your autofill suggestions. For myself, there's a ton at this point. Sometimes I have to go and clear them out because, at least for myself, there's a few addresses I'm shipping to if I'm sending something to a friend or traveling, which I've been doing a bit of recently. So a situation like that, or payment preferences, a lot of Americans are regularly changing payment preferences, right? Switching between credit cards, debit card, and what have you. And so it's an imperfect solution. It certainly reduces the friction, but it does not eliminate it. And we're in the business of just eliminating the friction completely and making it as easy as one click.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into kind of how it works. Let's take the WooCommerce side of things first. If I was wishing to, so I'll split this into two sections. We'll do the WooCommerce side, and then we'll do the sort of the more technology and what the customer journey feels like and looks like, so that the people who've installed it in WooCommerce know what their customers are going to get. So, how do we get it working with WooCommerce? Is it a simple download the plugin, activate it, set up some API integrations or codes or anything like that? How does it work on the Woo side?
Nothing like that. No API, nothing. Super easy. We like to say, get PeachPay set up in minutes so that your customer can check out in seconds. That's been a tagline that we've frequently used to great effect. That's something that some merchants are quite surprised by, that, oh, hey, I don't need my developer for this. I can just do it myself. And that's precisely what we want to see, is developers or just merchants taking the initiative. Because I think, a lot of developers or people in agencies, they don't see it as their place to suggest payment options. That's something we've heard a lot. And that's completely fair. That's completely fair. It's traditionally just been a question given to the merchant, like, okay, so you want to use PayPal, Stripe, can you use what's best for you? Do you have the type of product that Stripe might be more stringent about, okay, then maybe we use something else. But really, this is something that is we don't consider ourselves a payment gateway, or certainly not a process, right? Because we use Stripe. This is a checkout plugin, right? So something we tell people in agencies, developers is, just mention us, and just send out a form, gauge interest, and we guarantee you that the prospect will sound interesting to at least a few merchants, and that's certainly what we've seen. So we've just recently pretty much opened the floodgates and really started doubling down on distribution. Throughout January, pretty much we were iterating with our first batch of merchants, optimizing, solving compatibility issues, because obviously I'm preaching to the choir here, but lots of themes and plugins to navigate in the WooCommerce space and the WordPress space in general. And so, every theme brings something new, some elements of uncertainty. We promise seamless integration. We want to actually deliver it. And we want to make sure that the button isn't obfuscated by some element or some such. It's on the product page, but not on the cart page, or vice versa. All these things happen if you don't do the legwork. So we do the legwork, and we've implemented a wait list, which now hundreds of merchants, have opted into. And essentially, it's not an arbitrary process, even if it may seem like one. We essentially look at, okay, so this person, pretty much right away will take a look at the submission, usually minutes after, and say, okay, what theme is this person using? What plugins does this person seem to be using? Which ones are actually active? And have we dealt with this type of website before? Have we integrated with this plugin or that plugin or this theme or that theme? Multi-vendor, multi-site, all these things, all these different elements, they present a whole batch of compatibility issues that we have to fix and navigate. And we just want to make sure that the merchant or the developer never has to make the trade-off between some plugin that's deemed indispensable and then PeachPay, which I think will come to be seen as equally, if not more indispensable than a lot of the plugins out there.
Do you have sort of like options within the plugin to kind of surface it in a different way? You mentioned that you could well, you didn't mention you could customize, but you said it was possible to, for example, change the color of the button. Do you have options like that? Put the button over here, change its color, change out the logo. I'm just making up really what options might be, because I don't know. So yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. So alignment and width and color, most importantly, that is all customizable, and you don't need to know any code at all. It's just through the plugin settings in the WP dashboard. PeachPay has its own settings, so you just click the PeachPay icon and then adjust as necessary. And again, we just leave it up to the merchant. Do you want to make it look as native as possible, or do you want to instead make it a different color and thereby draw attention to it? Perhaps there's a valid argument either way.
Yeah. So it's pretty simple, is what you're saying. There's not a lot to do on the back end.
Absolutely, yeah. And once you opt into that wait list, then we reach out via email. Once we might reach out pretty fast, actually. Even though we say we'll pretty much get to all queries within 1 to 2 days. But we sometimes reach out very fast if we identify that, this is definitely a site we can onboard super quickly.
Okay. So, if I'm approaching a site now, not as the owner of the site, but as a customer on this site, how does it work? Now, you mentioned that there was some sort of slight but necessary onboarding the first time to enable PeachPay to gain some useful information about you, I guess your name and email address and so on. So what are we looking at? What do you click on? What does it require you to do? And how long does it typically take?
Yeah, so for that first-time user flow, again, you can just use autofill to go through it very quickly. It's this sort of streamlined form that it's a light box that just pops up, and already it's easier. The intention is to make it easier than 90% of checkout flows out there. But again, we don't stop there, right? That's just the first time user flow, and it doesn't matter what site you go through that first time user flow on, as long as you're using the same browser, same device. The next time you see that button, then you have the one click. You have your information presented to you, no password, um, and you can edit as necessary if you need to, but otherwise you can just check out with one click. And so I mentioned an app, and I mentioned that I would elaborate on that. Yeah, so what the app does is essentially you can use the app. I mentioned two verticals: checkout, post checkout. The app is primarily a vehicle for post checkout, but you can also use it for checkout. In that first time user flow, if you already have the app, maybe you're using a different device, but you're familiar with PeachPay. There's a QR code that's presented in that first time user flow that you can scan with the app and check out with just a couple taps, just one tap, really. And then on the mobile side, um, then the decision is up to you. You can go through the browser version on your smartphone. Otherwise, you can just essentially, you never have to go through that browser version and input your information if you have the app. Instead of a QR code being presented in that first time user flow, you can simply open the app, then you're taken to the confirmation screen, and again, you check out with one tap.
Okay. So just to be crystal clear to everybody, the first time you encounter PeachPay on a particular device, you will need to fill out some basic information, but it is literally that. It's name, email, address, which I guess is for sort of shipping purposes and so on, and then you're kind of done. The next time you come across any website, a WooCommerce site in this case, using PeachPay, when you hit that buy now button, that onboarding process, let's call it, is gone. You are at that point, literally, you click the button and you are then told, you're given that confirmation, you sure you want to proceed with this, and you click that, and that's it, you're done. 2 clicks.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, it's quite a streamlined flow. One of the curious things that I want to know is how you are keeping people logged in. And again, I just want to make the point that what we're saying here is that it's on a per device basis. So if I'm using, let's say, Safari on my Mac, and then I go over to a Windows machine over there and use something else, I have to go through that onboarding process one more time. And you told me it wasn't cookie based. It's not keeping a record of cookies or anything like that, but it is in some way maintaining state within the browser. But if I clean out the cookies, we're still good.
Right. So it's not third party cookie based. So it works on the browsers that have banned third party cookies, and Google is in the process of banning it, I think, within the course of this year, next year. And it is through the virtue of the browser. So you can call it device independent, but also browser independent. And so even if you are on the same device, it must be said that if you're switching between Brave or Google Chrome, you will need to go through that first time user flow again. But this is exactly where the app comes in handy. Is if you've used PeachPay before, we have this sort of funnel in the confirmation page to make it very easy to get set up with the app. You scan a QR code, assuming you're on a PC, and then the information that you use to place the order is used to create an account for you on the mobile app. And then if you're on the mobile app, and you can use it to check out, it's very easy to hop between browsers, and you can just rely on the app then. But most people, they stick to one browser, and then they're on one device usually, and so they just have that. They don't even need to pull out the phone. Ideally, they just go through the one-click checkout experience through the browser.
Yeah, because they've logged in, as it were, before. So again, just to be clear, if let's say I bought a brand new machine and I have the app installed on my phone, and I open up the browser for the very first time and I encounter the button, I can scan a QR code and that will take care of it all. So again, I'm on a new computer, I'm presented with the QR code. Does that flow work? I wasn't quite clear on that.
Yeah, so it does work. It essentially you scan that QR code, and then you are taken to a confirmation page within the app.
Yeah. Okay. And then I see. So the payment then sort of is transferring in a sense through the app, not through the actual browser itself. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and then obviously, if you do want to do it just through your browser, you do at some point have to put in your information.
Yeah.
Ideally, we want to eliminate that component so that, you know, then if you check out through your phone somehow, we can we can remember you in a way. But
Yeah. Yeah.
probably that's something further out in the future. Certainly, it's not something we do now.
No, it kind of reminds me of a neat new feature that I've just seen my bank doing, which is that I've tried to pay for things, and the bank is curious that this is sort of out of scope. I don't normally buy this thing, and so I get a little pop-up on my phone, just sort of saying, "Are you sure? Is this actually you?" So I'm doing it on my
Right.
computer, but my phone is the actual thing which is making the payment happen. It's my banking app, but it's curious. So. Are we logging in anywhere? If we're presenting you on that first onboarding time with our email, our address, and so on, are you storing this data anywhere? Is it being kept just inside the browser, or is there some sort of server somewhere on the planet that's maintaining all of this stuff?
Right. So we just use tokenized Stripe, and essentially, the idea is it's completely passwordless again.
Yep.
And when we say passwordless, we don't mean OTP. We mean completely passwordless. And so, that's the main offering, is that this is not another set of credentials that you need to account for, unless you want to. And we're building that out to accommodate the more security-based end users, those that do want some locks on or some friction that they themselves introduce to maybe account for that aberrant child or that stray cat. We do want to, obviously we want to accommodate those folks as well.
Just because that image is not going to leave me. The cat playing the expensive object. You mentioned Stripe, and obviously you're very, very open about that right from the beginning. You're not a payment gateway; you're a conduit through Stripe. How are we, if we sign up to this? How are we paying for this? Is there a monthly fee that we have to pay? Do we just sort of pay for a license for the plugin, or are we, are you taking a little bit on top of each transaction in the way that Stripe does? How do you pay for your existence?
Yeah, so that's correct. We're not a payment gateway, not a processor, just a checkout experience platform. This sort of new breed of company, which is only recently just seeing the light of day. And it's completely free to the merchant. The merchant pays no cost. It's just like using Stripe or PayPal. You get set up, and then maybe that seems a little too good to be true. It has with some merchants I've spoken to. Essentially, the way we make it work is just by then we're in conversations with Stripe about this currently, about negotiating the details about what percentage we get out of that cut that's given to Stripe. In the US, it's 2.9% plus 30 cents. In Australia, it's something else. In parts of Europe, it's something else.
Yeah.
And so, all that's being worked out. I can say we're in conversations with Stripe, and that's how we monetize, is essentially just through that transaction fee. We do not want to levy any additional charges on the actual merchant.
That's really interesting. So the conversation with Stripe is you would get a proportion of, for the sake of argument, let's just say it's 2.9%. You're in talks to take a little bit of that 2.9%. I guess in a way, if you can prove that people are paying more money through the Stripe network because of your product, then it makes sense for them to give you a little bit of the money because your checkout is working well for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Stripe is, their payment processing space is pretty competitive.
Yeah.
I would even say hyper competitive. And so anything that helps them get on more online stores, obviously they're being involved in WooCommerce payments, but anything that helps really is in their interest.
I just have one final question, and that is just sharing the thought about whether or not there's life in this business in the future. In other words, do you have concerns that, say, somebody like Automatic, who obviously are behind WooCommerce and it would be good for them to have a product like this. Do you have any concerns that a company like Automatic may down the line build something like this and obviously upset the apple cart?
You know what? I think Automatic's great. We've had conversations with them. They're very interested in what we're doing. Matt personally reached out, which was a great moment in me and my co-founders' careers, because he said, he expressed some interest in what we were doing, and said it looks like a cool project. And honestly, I think Automatic. I mean, I would love for Automatic to essentially make it easier for WooCommerce merchants to check out, for WooCommerce merchants to introduce one-click checkout, make it easier for their customers to check out. It is something on their radar, and it's not a concern, but it's something that we hope happens, and we hope that, certainly we hope that they rope us in, and that we're along for the ride. But really, we do want to see, we do want to see the community flourish, and we do want to see WooCommerce grow even more. And again, it's only day one, so there are a lot of conversations to be had, and there are a lot of improvements to be made. Checkout is certainly one such area for improvement.
Yeah, it really is just a tremendously fast-paced environment, isn't it? E-commerce and currently, technologies like yours, and obviously the advent of payment gateways that are reliable and cheap to use and easy to implement. It's all kind of going in the right direction. And then, you have something like the pandemic come along, and suddenly all of that effort was worthwhile. Suddenly we all needed to be shopping online. So, yeah, bravo, hat tip. Thank you for coming on the podcast today and explaining about PeachPay. Before I let you go, chance to say anything that you think I didn't ask. Perhaps that would be as simple as, dropping an email or a Twitter handle or something like that. But if there's anything that you feel that I didn't touch upon, now's the chance.
Yeah, all I will plug is our site, which has all the necessary information, socials and whatnot. And that's peachpay.app, not peachpay.me, as we established early on. So peachpay.app, you can, that wait list that I spoke of, you can join that wait list through the website. You can find out a bit more about what we're doing. We're currently adding documentation and whatnot for those who are interested. If anyone has any questions, obviously they can ask through the site and find my email that way and connect that way. But I'd love to hear any queries, and might as well just mention my email now. It's just David at peachpay.app. And we're very much open to if any people in the agency world, the web development world are listening. Certainly, I'm certain that there are quite a few. We're always open to partnerships and these sorts of mass distributional deals, allocating a part of our engineering team to accommodating an influx of merchants from a particular partnership. We're in talks with a number of agencies and web development firms in that regard, and certainly open to starting more conversations. And again, just very amped and very excited about democratizing one-click checkout, because it's certainly the type of world where I would want to shop in.
Yeah, that's a good way to round it out. David, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and talking to us about PeachPay. Cheers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. Certainly very interesting from my perspective today. WooCommerce is not my main thing, and so finding out about all these fascinating WooCommerce related technologies is very interesting to me. You can obviously click on the links in the show notes if you'd like to find out more. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there, some of it related to PeachPay and how to find the website itself, but also some of it, as I mentioned at the very top of the podcast, to do with the fact that WooCommerce have invested in this. So PeachPay, go check it out. I hope that you enjoyed that podcast episode. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by Termageddon. When you build contact forms for client websites, you may be forcing that client to comply with multiple privacy laws. Rather than avoiding discussing the importance of privacy policies with your clients, try out Termageddon, the auto-updating privacy policy generator. The best part is that Termageddon gives web agencies a free set of their policies forever in the hopes that you like their product and use their reseller or referral programs to help your clients get protected too. Your clients get protected. You make more recurring revenue. Go to termageddon.com and click the Agency Partners page to receive your free license today. Okay, we will be back next week. Next week it'll be a session between David Wormsley and I. Until then, stay safe. I hope that you have a good week. I'll fade in some cheesy music and say bye-bye for now.